So if you've got a good understanding on that, 0800 80 1080 is the number, 23 past 1. G'day, Collin.
How's it going?
Yeah, good. Good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm a farmer. I'm in the central North Island, and I was having a meeting with the CEO of one of these large carbon farming types, and their plan was to plant these trees out, and they said they will never be harvested. They expect them to stand there for 100 years. And our town has suffered. There's thousands of hectares have gone into pine trees around our town. The town's dying. There's no forestry crews here. There's no pruning crews here. There's none of that going on. And the same company expects, they've ordered trees next year to plant another 80,000 hectares.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, that's interesting. Do you think that's specific to that company, or is that what carbon farming is generally all about? They don't really intend on harvesting? I couldn't speak for any other company. Okay.
I was in a meeting with this particular guy and his production manager, and this was before this really got to be an issue. They've just started into this carbon farming. They're a new company, and I knew they had a few farms on their books, and they were looking for more, and they outlined their plan. They reckoned they could get figures that would say that pine trees could sequester for beyond 50 years. So that's their aim, is to try and talk to government and be able to let them claim carbon credits beyond 50 years. And as to the harvesting, if they're going to sell the credits now, this week for, I don't know, what are they, around $82 a tonne at the moment? When they harvest, they have to pay a large percentage of that back. Now, who's to say, and if the prices go up like they have over the last 5 years, I mean, it wasn't long ago, they were $2 a tonne. Now we're talking $82 a tonne. If they had to pay back even 65% of that and they're worth $160 a tonne, they're just not going to do it.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking about what you're saying based on the price of carbon. Who knows? That's the whole point, right? Who knows what will happen? It seems unlikely that will fall dramatically, but you don't know. And then you see what happens with places like the Central Plateau, where there are now huge new dairy farms. In my life, I've lived long enough to see pine trees planted, harvested, and now the land returned to farming. So that is a possibility, I guess. But who's going to farm it if the farmers have gone?
Yeah, that's part of the problem. So as a farmer, I have no problem paying for my methane. I'm all for conservation. We're sheep and beef. We're hill country. We've still managed to fence off our waterways. We've done all the right things, even though we've never been compelled to. We had sustainable farm plans on our particular farms from the 70s. Right. But we've been working at this for a long, long time.
So, Collin, when you hear, and I'm not going to turn into one of those people that now they've gone and can't defend themselves, I'll pull them to pieces, but the guy that called Vicky's husband, she kind of did the whole Trojan horse thing and got him on and said, here's my husband. So he had a lot of facts. He clearly was attached to stuff that he had read, or he's an expert in whatever. When you hear people like that talking about you don't understand that they will be largely harvested, you've just said that's not the case with this particular company. Can you see why there's so much confusion?
Yeah, I can see it. I can absolutely see it. And, when I talk, I got a lot of friends in the towns and the cities, and you've got to be in the game and affecting your life to be able to take an interest to read the fine print. And if you're not reading the fine print, you're not going to understand what's going on here.
No, Collin, and just another thing too, I could talk to you for an hour, trust me, because I've been glued to other stations who do really long discussions on this, and it's been very interesting for me to listen to that, because I'm learning, you're learning. But when you sell a farm, and you might know people who've sold their farms thinking the person they're selling it to is going to farm, is that quite soul-destroying to know that all those years of fencing and doing whatever you've been doing is just wiped out, and you had no say in that once it's sold?
Absolutely soul-destroying. I've got a neighbour who sold a farm 6 months ago, and he refused to let the forestry companies come onto it. He probably took I'd say close to $500,000 loss on the sale, because he wouldn't sell it to a forestry company. See, at the moment, we're hill country farmers. If we farm really well, we could gross $1,200 to $1,500 a hectare out of a farm. Carbon credits will pay you over $2,000 a hectare right now. So any hill country farmer in New Zealand, if he wants to make more money than he is farming, he just plant his own farm in pine trees. And it's not expensive to plant a farm in pine trees.
Right.
Farmers are farming because they like farming. No one wants to live with pine trees all around them. You know, you're living in the shade. Who wants to do that?
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. They're quite, you don't even have to be a hunter or a tramper to just drive up the desert road and slow down and look into a forest to see how dark and miserable it is in a pine forest.
Yeah.
Soulless places. So I've just written that down. You said a farmer can make between $1,200 and $1,500 per hectare.
If he's farming really well.
Yep.
Yeah, if he's tight on his expenditure and he's doing it good.
Okay, and that's mixed, is it? That's sheep and beef?
Sheep and beef, yeah.
All right, and so with pine forest, straight away you're getting $2,000 a hectare.
Yep.
Okay, that you can see the appeal, right?
Absolutely, and they're not spending all this money buying these big farms to lose money.
Yeah.
It's an absolute business proposition. Buying these farms, planting out in pine trees, and they're just in the money.
Yeah.
They've got to wait 4 or 5 years till the pine trees start achieving. Yeah, there's tables on the MPI sites will tell you how many tons of carbon a pine tree will make in your area over in every year. Cumulative out to their tables go out to 30 years at the moment.
Yeah. Do you think it's fair to say there's a certain proportion of farmers who've just had enough of all the pressure on them and they're going, actually, I don't give a flying sausage who buys it, and that's good money. Goodbye, I'm out.
Yeah, there's some, but a lot won't. And I tell you, in the last month, I've never seen so many farms on the market, and good farms. There's the farmers out there just had enough. And you've got this, they always talked about the farmer, older generation. Those guys they see all this paperwork coming at them, this red tape coming at them, these costs coming at them, and they're just getting out now.
Yeah.
And these are landmark farms. There's some beautiful farms coming on the market.
Yeah, look, where I grew up most of my life, there's the same thing. And I think of all the very hilly country on the east coast of Wairarapa, but it's not just that. It's often flatland stuff, good, mixed arable, mixed sheep, beef, arable stuff going into pine trees. It doesn't make any sense to me. So going back to the point that Vicky's husband made as well around, he laughed when I said, we provide enough food for about 85 million people, something like that.
40 million, I think. It's 40 million people New Zealand feeds.
Well, that's a huge difference, isn't it, from what I've been told? Okay, so let's go for 40 million. Clearly, we're not eating all that. We're exporting most of that. If we aren't able to provide that, what happens to our GDP? What's the long-term picture looking like for New Zealand?
It's actually not GDP that matters. GDP is our gross domestic product. So that's the money that's going around and around and around inside the country. So if you liken it to a family unit, you've got your mother and father and your 2 kids. GDP is like the kid going out washing the car and the father giving him $5. The money stays in the family. Yeah. It's the export earnings that make a country's wealth. Yeah, no, I get that. I understand that. The reason I say GDP is because of all of those ancillary businesses attached to farming, from the accountant sitting in the office to the boarding schools to the, everything, the new tractor, the new ute, the quad bike, the drench. Yeah. Oh, you need to catch up and buy yourself an electric ute, Collin. That's yeah. Oh, I've been looking at those.
Have you?
I haven't seen one that'll do a job yet.
Yeah, well, they'll be here. It will happen. I just can't. One thing that I'm finding quite confronting is the speed of change in the last few years. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, Collin,
I've got a couple of other points which I think are worth mentioning.
Okay.
The Kyoto Protocol was signed in 1990. 1990, New Zealand had 108 million stock units. So that's equating all the stock in New Zealand to a stock unit, which is the standard agricultural term. Like a ewe is about 1.1 stock units these days, and a 2-year-old steer can be 6. It goes on how much they eat. The last census they did, or the last records the government has, was 2018, and we had 96 million stock units. That's a 15% reduction in the methane since 1990, without taking anything else into account.
Right.
And that's without any drop in production. So farming has improved its efficiency by more than 15% since 1990. So they've reduced that amount of stock, but producing the same amount of produce, mostly by putting more weight on them. The other thing is our government still uses the GWP 100 metric for measuring methane, which a lot of other countries in the IPCC don't recommend anymore. They say we should be using the GWP star. The GWP 100 overstates the effects of methane by 400 to 500%, whereas the GWP star doesn't.
Okay.
So we're cutting our own throats in that regard as well.
Well, it's really good to hear from someone. I've had a few texts as well from people on the land as well. So thank you, Colin. Good to hear from you.
No, you're welcome. Nice to talk to you,
Yeah,
Ryan.
you too. You too. And that's Taumaranui, another beautiful part of the country. If you haven't poked your nose in and around Taumaranui on the back roads there, up the headwaters of the Wanganui River, it is beautiful. Can you imagine it covered in pine trees? I think it's a very sad indictment, personally.